7:36 now on O'Connor and Company on this Wednesday morning in your nation's capital. Last day of January. We're already 1/12 of the way through 2024. It is crazy. It's absolutely insanity. Coming up at 8:05, talk about insanity. We're going to try to bring some sanity to our national security woes with Katie McFarland, formerly of the National Security Brain Trust there from the Trump administration. We'll find out what she thinks of what Biden should do with regard to Iran. I am Larry O'Connor. She is Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Get ready, Julie, because we've got Hans von Spakovsky in the house. Of course, Hans von Spakovsky is in charge of the Election Law Reform Initiative at Heritage Foundation and also senior legal fellow. I love, by the way, Hans, thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Sure. Well, good morning, Larry. Good morning, Julie.
I love your boss, Kevin Roberts, there. He was, I'm sure you saw this on Fox News Sunday when, or no, I can't remember what interview it was, but somebody challenged him on the 2020 election. Why won't you say that there's no real election fraud? And he said, excuse me, but at Heritage Foundation, we have the Election Law Reform Initiative, and we have multiple instances of election fraud that have gone on. And that was you. He was giving you a beautiful shout out there, Hans. I was like, I was doing a fist pump when he did that.
Did he mention us?
Not
yeah, no, in fact, our election fraud database, we just hit 1,500 proven cases of fraud.
Yeah, exactly. I want to turn you to the southern border, though, because, you know, we entered the weekend, Hans, with a constitutional showdown with Texas joined by 25 other states, all pledging their state's National Guard to do the work that the Biden administration refuses to do, even though constitutionally they are obliged to do so. And by statute, they're obliged to do so. They're supposed to protect the border. They refuse to do so. In fact, they're going out of the way to circumvent Texas's ability to protect their own state's borders. And this, as far as we know, Biden gave them a deadline, and nothing has happened at this point. Abbott and the Republican governors have not blinked. Where does this stand right now, and how does this play out constitutionally?
Well, you know, what the U.S. Supreme Court did in the lawsuit that's going on between Texas and the Biden administration over all of this, all they did was issue a two-line order that said that there's not going to be any injunction in place while the case is on appeal. Right. So in essence, Texas can keep putting up the the barbed wire fencing because there's no court order saying they can't do it.
Well, Hans,
and so,
I get that, and I appreciate it, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I've seen liberal analysts on this say that may be well and good, but Texas is preventing Border Patrol agents from entering the park where this razor wire is, and they have the right to enter the park and remove those barriers. So who's right here?
Well, in fact, what the Supreme Court did dissolve is the injunction that was preventing the federal government from going in and removing those barriers. So basically, you've got a stalemate while this case is on appeal, and there's going to be arguments in the Fifth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals in mid-February about it. But so the status right now is Texas can keep putting up wire. The Biden administration can keep trying to take it down. I mean, it's a weird situation, but that's what the situation is. But because of the court orders,
but just
place.
Succinctly, does the Texas National Guard have to allow the agents into the area so that they can remove the wire?
I think that's a question that hasn't been answered, and the key here is Texas has been putting in this barbed wire fencing on state-owned property.
Right.
And why are the Border Patrol agents wanting to go in those areas? Well, in the district court that was hearing the case, they had video evidence, and the judge said, well, the only reason they were going in there was to cut holes in the fence so illegal aliens could cross the border.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is the Border Patrol was being instructed by Alexander Mayorkas to help illegal aliens violate federal law by coming across the border.
And so if Biden ends up pushing this, that's the video footage we'll get. Biden has won. Yeah. His people can now go in and remove barriers to allow illegal crossings. I don't think politically he wants that, Julie.
Well, speaking of Mayorkas, did you, I don't know if you happened to watch the markup yesterday. This is the impeachment hearings that are going on the House side. Was there anything notable that happened yesterday, and where does that stand?
all of these critics who are saying, "Oh, this is the behavior of Mayorkas is not a high crime and misdemeanor. Right. He can't be impeached." They're wrong. It's not just that he's failing to enforce the law. He has been deliberately telling DHS personnel to violate federal law. When you have a federal official who is directly violating federal law, are those critics trying to say you can't impeach that official for doing that? And just one example is, look, federal law says that when an illegal alien crosses the border, he has to be detained or immediately removed from the country. It's one or the other. Instead, the administration is not only allowing them in, they're helping them to get in, and then they're granting a mass parole. That's a direct violation of federal law, and it's Mayorkas that's telling his people to do that.
After months of Mayorkas, years, I should say, of Mayorkas and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the spokespeople for the White House saying that the border is secure, we now have the spectacle of Joe Biden demanding the Senate pass a law so that he can secure the border that he has already told us is secure. Is there any new law that is needed? Biden says he can't do anything unless this new law is passed, and he's been asking since day one, which is a complete lie. But is there a new law that's needed? If Biden says he needs the law to shut down the border, is that true?
No, it is totally false. Has everybody forgotten the Trump travel orders? Remember, Trump issued a travel order shutting down the border and stopping the entry of all aliens from particular countries. And it was the political allies of Joe Biden who challenged that, went to court. It went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in Trump versus Hawaii, the Supreme Court said, no, the president, he's got the authority under federal immigration law to shut down the border for all aliens or any class of aliens.
President has that power, has that authority now.
Yeah. Exactly right. So anybody in the Senate who thinks that if they somehow give him more authority, he'll shut down the border, they're crazy. He could do it right now, and he's not doing it.
All right. And quickly, I've heard again, and this is why we love having you, Hans, because you've got the expertise on these things. You hear these pundits on television say, oh, there was a showdown with Pete Wilson in California in the 90s about this, and we had a recent showdown with Obama in the state of Arizona about this, and each time federal law always prevails. The states have no right with regard to the border or immigration issues. Is that right, or is there just certain instances when federal law trumps state law?
There's only certain instances when federal law trumps state law. And if they look at that U.S. versus Arizona case, in fact, the vast majority of the provisions that the state put in place were upheld. It was only a handful that the U.S. Supreme Court said went too far. So those critics ought to reread that case.
That was the law. By the way, remember Obama and Eric Holder lied about it and said, yeah, there's a new law in Arizona where a cop can stop somebody buying an ice cream cone on the street and ask them for their papers, which was a total lie and fabrication. And you'd think if they had the law on their side, they wouldn't be lying all the time, Hans.
Well, yeah, but that's like the President Joe Biden basically running a con game saying, well, if you just give me more power, I'll shut down the border when actually he could do it right now.
All right. Hans, listen, this is a great, important policy and constitutional law conversation we've been having, and we appreciate it, but we've got to move on to John Fetterman's love life, and I don't think you want to hang out for that. Thank you, Hans. It's 7:45, WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes, first on the 5s. Seriously, we do have an update on John Fetterman's love life. But first, here